Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Duckstories. It's a platform at Telenor Pakistan where we celebrate professional and entrepreneurial failures. Very happy today to have Khurrum Ashfaque with us today, CEO at Telenor Pakistan. Khurrum joined Telenor back in 2006 as part of a team when Telenor was accelerating in the market. And since then, he has progressed in roles as CTO, COO, and then was named CEO in September 2023. Now, this is nearly 2 decades of leadership and transformation within the company, and I'm sure it must have come with a lot of failures and a lot of stories as well. So before we dive into that, I just want to thank you, Khurrum, for joining us today. Really happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I've heard about this program. I've heard about some of the other people who've joined here. So it's my first time with you guys. I hope I can share some things which will be useful for
We're
the
really
rest
looking forward. So Khurrum, before I dive into the stories, the failure stories itself, I just want to know a bit about you. Let the audience know about your childhood, early memories, maybe a role model you had in your life, early schooling. So just if you could share a bit about you.
It's been a long time, right? So I have to really go back and think. Very early on, initial schooling, few years in Greece, of all the places. Then high school, everything in Lahore. And I did my engineering from Karachi. So I've been all over the place.
Wow.
So, and that's when the story starts.
Khurrum, so where were you born? In Lahore?
No, I was born in Karachi.
Karachi. All right. Okay. And I heard from one of our colleagues a day before that your father was an archaeologist.
Yeah.
So that was a very interesting fact I did not know about you. How was life like with him being obviously his career and the role model there?
No, it was very interesting. And that was one of the things that gave an opportunity to travel a lot. You know, as I mentioned, Greece was because of his work there. And then, our summer vacations were spent visiting, places like Mohenjo-daro and then a lot of the Gandhara archaeological places in Sawat and the northern areas. So a good familiarity with a lot of these historical places.
That's
so,
nice.
We practically lived in the Lahore fort for a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
That was, a unique experience in itself. But yeah, and I think that helps shape you also because then you are aware of a lot of history and a lot of background. So it trains you to not just look at things as they appear, but then you also start thinking about, what is the history of this what is in front of you.
Yeah.
And once you begin to think in a continuum, then you are much better able to appreciate the value of what's going on and the more the background of things.
Absolutely. And I think you must have seen more of Pakistan than majority of the people around, considering all these sites are,
Yeah, I mean, back maybe 20, 25 years ago, the travel was not so easy. Right now, you have these modern motorways and quite a few places, especially in the northern areas, are reachable by regular cars and stuff. So I'm sure now there is a lot more local tourism and it's a lot of places are more accessible. So I wouldn't say I've seen more than whatever, but fair share of things. Yeah.
And Khurrum Sahab, so I just want to understand, as a child, did you have any other interests growing up? Were there any other aspirations or anything
I don't know. You must tell me. I mean, is there life beyond homework and school? Because that's what most of the time was spent in. But, I was a very typical childhood in that sense. So besides these sort of adventures into traveling with my father to see all of these places, a lot of book reading, some games and stuff, but mostly regular regular childhood. Yeah.
Okay. And you studied engineering.
Yeah.
Is that the profession you wanted to choose, or was it sort of like family?
Well, I wanted to be a pilot.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
But then my mother was very apprehensive. She said, I have only one son, so the risk for that was very high. But still, yeah. I mean, I was tinkering with things, trying to fix stuff from
an early age.
Yeah. So it came naturally, and I enjoyed studying engineering and then starting the career in engineering. So it was not so much as a kind of okay, this is a career that you have to. It came naturally. It was fun.
So Khurrum sahab कहते हैं ना कि leaders are born, not made. In your early life, do you think was there ever a moment in your life where you thought that you are a natural leader? Or was it something you had to also develop over time?
You talk about leaders are born and not made. It might be, but I think it should not come as something of a disappointment for a lot of us if we think that we are not leaders. And since we were not born leaders, we cannot be leaders. I think you can train yourself. I think those around you can help to be a leader. I was not a leader at all, quite shy to actually think of it. But then there were certain events, some things happened, and you had to take more responsibility. For example, when I was doing my O-levels, and so my father was, the whole family, they were transferred back to Karachi from Lahore, and then I had still 1 year to complete. So I lived as a paying guest in some places. So that was, when you had to actually come out on your own. So those are the things that shape you. I don't think I was ever a born leader. Things shape you, but you have to have it in you to use those opportunities.
Yeah.
And then again, you get mentoring, you get coaching. You are, companies like Telenor put you through a lot of places where you learn things, and
absolutely,
that's then up to you.
Absolutely,
you might go through them and still come out not really having benefit from it, or it may help shape you as a better leader.
And aapne so you did your engineering in Karachi, okay?
Yep.
And uske baad what happened? You went to professionally, you started
I started working. There was at that time this so-called digitization journey in Pakistan. So it was the first time that Pakistan had signed up for this digital telephony. Optical fiber was coming in the country. So there was a French company that had started. It was called Alcatel at that time. So I started working with them. It was quite a journey because that was when a lot of the foundation on which the telecommunication networks of today are built in Pakistan. That was when it started. And after a few years, I moved to Canada. I started working for another company there. This was the period, I'm pretty sure you haven't heard about it, but there was a just like COVID, there was a period which was called Y2K, so year 2000. So it was quite a crazy time, and everyone thought that the whole computer networks, telecommunication, everything would just jam up when the dates would change from 1999 to 2000. So that was a big explosion of a lot of software development, a lot of upgrades, new technology started coming in. Internet was beginning to get scale. So that's when I actually started working in Canada, and it was again a wonderful journey there. A lot of new stuff, new technologies, opportunity to work with teams that were introducing new types of equipment. So a lot of IPR, a lot of new patents were getting registered. So it was crazy innovation going on. So
No, that was the era. I feel like wo jo ek boom tha 2000 ka, it was big. And
Yeah, it was big. It was centered around, actually, when you look back, it was centered around bringing this whole internet thing into the hands of the people, into mass
Absolutely.
market. So it was no more this secluded network that was, working for a few universities in US or those kind of places. This was exploding, coming to your homes. After a few years, coming into smartphones, so laptops and everything. So internet was truly becoming a scale technology, like you see now with AI.
with AI,
Coming
absolutely.
into, it's not an obscure high-end technology for very expensive use cases. Now you have it in your phones, you have it in your watches, you have it in a lot of these gadgets. So it's that time when a specialized technology moves into more mass utilization and mass adoption. So yeah, these are very interesting times, and usually these are the times in which you have to be prepared to adapt the change and go along. Otherwise, you might be left behind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You get obsolete in some way or the
Yeah.
other. And there are so many examples of companies we do see, that were not able to be that agile.
Yeah, so it may not be so much about companies, because a lot of companies get left behind because there are reasons for business model, there are reasons for not being commercially successful. It doesn't mean that they were not innovative or they didn't adopt the technologies, because there are a lot of other reasons why companies might fail. I would
Absolutely.
talk about us as individuals. How are we defining ourselves into participating in these transformations, in these periods when new technologies are coming in.
Absolutely. No, thank you, sir, for sharing this. Khurrum Sahab, I wanted to come back to the time that you were at Alcatel, because I just want to highlight that at this point, I'm sure you were somewhat at a junior low role.
Yeah.
And before stepping into a formal leadership role, what were the setbacks? What was your life like? How was your journey that shaped you into who you are today?
Lots and lots of travel, and in places where you didn't really have good places to stay or to travel. So you have to adapt to these things. So there is a disappointment, because real work, real customers, real situations demand a much more they put a lot more demand on you than what you're prepared for in your school or in your university or even in your family. So you have to, it's a bit of an awakening, especially if you are in field roles. You hire a taxi, travel 400 kilometers to another city, and then you are looking for a place to spend the night, and then from the morning you start working on a customer's premises. So it's those kind of things that you really want to give up.
Yeah, definitely.
and go back and find something for yourself which is more comfy and like an office here with air conditioning and everything. But as a field engineer, if you don't go through that rigorous part in your life, then you don't get those experiences. And in fact, those are the real experiences on the ground which train you as a leader. Absolutely. In which you are interacting with people who are not necessarily coming to you with the mindset of helping you.
Absolutely.
So then you have to convince your customers, you have to convince other people around you that what you're doing is important for them, it's important for you. And how do you create that sense of working together and collaboration?
And I'm sure those lessons and learnings of that time when you were in the field is something you still carry with you, because aap abhi bhi you do customer visits, you do the field visits, and I'm sure you have insight on what's happening on ground within the company as well.
Definitely. And then you are able to, because working in an operational environment, you have to be, even if at a senior level, you have to be able to understand the complexities and the kind of challenges that your teams out in the fields face, whether they are trying to run a sales and distribution network in a remote part of the country, or whether these are your engineers who are trying to work on a radio tower. Having gone through some of those experiences helps you.
Absolutely.
Of course, I mean, that kind of experience varies from country to country, from region to region. Some of the countries are very well developed, and these kind of services are taken for granted. But in a country like Pakistan, for example, or other South Asian countries, I've had interaction and visited Bangladesh, Myanmar, even Thailand. So some of these work, India, for example, and a lot of the places in Africa, it's a real challenge to work in the field. And if management does not really understand the dynamics in the field, then there is a gap in your perception of problem and in your ability to help your teams.
And so then obviously you went to Canada, you had a lot of exposure there. What made you decide to come back to Pakistan and come to Telenor? Because I'm assuming iske baad a foreign Telenor right, after Canada.
So when I moved to Canada, I had just we were married for about 2 years. We had a young daughter,
sweet.
7-8 months. So we moved like typical immigrants with a child and all our stuff. But we had good friends there. I got a job almost as soon as we got there. As I said, there was a boom going on, not just from a professional point of view, but also from a life learning, life experiences. It was a very good experience because we were alone and we had the whole thing to set up ourselves.
It's an exciting journey,
it was exciting. It we made quite a lot of mistakes, but we also then fixed those ourselves. So then we were more, as a family, we were more reliant on ourselves than dependent on others to solve our problems. So failures do teach you to how to not do it next time, right? So that it was good experience. But what had happened was that because my wife she was a doctor, but she couldn't practice there because the process at that time was quite complicated and very long. And since we had young kids, then she couldn't. So at some point we decided that she also wanted to get along on her own career. So we said, okay, we were thinking and planning about coming back to Pakistan. That's when somehow I got to meet someone who was working here, who had just started working for Telenor Pakistan, and it was a very new setup at that time. They had just launched a few months. So this was back in 2005. So, one conversation led to other. So it sort of somehow, this is, how nature works. If some things are to happen, everything starts aligning, and sometimes it doesn't. However, you may try. So one thing led to another. So then I was introduced to the team who needed someone who had experience working in Pakistan, but who had also worked on these technologies. So I was working in Nortel. I was working on GSM technology, and I was quite aware of 3G and all of that was going on. So it was, I believe, a good deal for both. So I landed in TP, and TP had someone who knew the context of the Pakistani market and the dynamics of the field operations here. So that's when I came in here.
And what did you join as? Your first role?
So I joined in the technology team as a manager for operations. I was looking after, transmission and some of that stuff. Yeah.
So obviously from there, I just want to understand from your journey as a manager in technology department to then becoming CTO. how was the journey like? What were some of the, and specifically focusing on, major setbacks या failures जो आपके along the way आए हो? So would you like to share?
No, it was an extremely eventful journey. Not easy at all. A lot of ups and downs, both in terms of the complexity of the job, different roles, and in terms of your ability to solve some of the problems or your failure. So I had a fair share of those. One good thing that worked for me was this whole culture about rotating people. So I have not spent more than, I believe, maybe 3.5 years in a role in this company. They've always,
HR team.
no, not HR, myself, and then the people who I was working with. We've always managed to find something which went well. Sometimes it's been places where things were not working well, and then I got the opportunity to try to fix things. Sometimes it was more of a rotation. So I did quite a few. Some worked out well. Some didn't. I spent a very long time as a manager before I became a director.
I wanted to know actually, यही मेरा follow up था कि कितने साल आपने manager गुजारा और फिर CTO और manager के बीच में कितना साल का difference है?
So from 2006 to 2012. I was I spent time as a manager. Sometimes started off with a very small team of 5 people. In between, I had a team of I think 78 or 80 people.
Oh wow!
And then I had a team of 115, which I had to then squeeze into around 55. So, you have all these places. But before joining Telenor, it was, as I said, it was not my first job. So I had already worked almost 14 years before coming to TP. So if you look at it, then I spent maybe 7-8 years in Telenor as a manager before I became a director in setting up the software development function here. But then I just spent 2 years as a director before I became.
So Khurrum Saab, as a telecom, we lost the network leadership at some point. So as a CTO, what do you think about that?
There was a period in which we were focusing a lot on technology transformation, and perhaps not so much on how it was going to impact the customers. We were doing those transformations to bring in, to bring better experience for the customers. But then what happens while you go through that? So back in, 2010, 2011, we went through a very painful period when we were transforming the network, swapping out old generation equipment. It did eventually help us to be ready for 3G when it happened. But while it was going through, we did experience, the customers experienced, in some places their overall, the level of experience that they were expecting went down, right? Weren't able to match the expectations of the customer. So you can call it a failure, or you can call it that we could have done it better.
Mm-hmm.
But then we were able to climb back out of it. And then we had a excellent 3G rollout.
Yes.
And then quickly on top of it, 4G came there. So at one point, the pace on which we were doing almost 2 new 4G towers every 12 or 24 hours. So that was a massive speed that we did that. And so I would say whenever you start doing some very deep transformation, whether in the organization or on the network or on your business processes, it should not be looked, the transition period and the customer detraction that you get in that at that time, it is a failure, right? Because the customers are not happy about it. But as you move along, and if you are able to deliver those transformations successfully, then it helps you build back on it. So the key is that you don't take failure for granted, that, okay, this will not work out, it will fail. But you try to, in every next iteration, you try to improve it.
Absolutely.
And you try to do it better. You still might fail on some of the aspects, but at least you would have improved from some of the things from last time. So then this is how the story goes, right? Every 7 to 10 years, the entire technology area, especially in telecommunications, has to be, it takes a totally new, like
it
we are
transitions.
now. Exactly. We are now, we should have been already in 5G. People are already working on standards and technologies that will be relevant for 6G. But when 5G comes, we might go through another transition and a potential for failure. But if we learn our lessons and we try to fix those things, then at least those that happened in past shouldn't happen again.
Absolutely.
There might be new challenges which will fail, and we'll fix it.
So Khurrum Saab, how was your experience and your entire time as a COO in Telenor? At that time, I believe you were looking after you had experience in the commercial, technology, digital, overall portfolio. So how was that experience like? Any major challenges you would like to highlight?
Yeah. No, I think it was a good bet that Telenor Pakistan took on in getting on to this the digital piece of thing, and we started looking at gaming. So there was an entire division that was created, and people started working there. The innovation piece of it, the engagement with the startups. A lot of that entire ecosystem that was built on digital apps and their interplay with direct operator billing, with the availability of 4G data. So those combined ecosystem started to make sense. We went into that space, but what was not supportive was the ecosystem still around it. There was still a high barrier for because we started back in 2018, 2019, right? There was still a barrier because of the smartphone prices. There was still this payments with the supplier, because a lot of these digital services were running on global platforms. These were international companies, and we were consuming those services here, and Telenor was acting as the intermediary, right? Using the airtime credits to pay for those services. So this was, this was all being set up as we went along. There were no clear regulations. There were no clear policies around it. So it was a bit of a no man's land, and every operator was trying to figure out a way, because there was a consumer demand. It made business sense, and there were suppliers and service providers who wanted to reach out to the. But I think what failed was at that time was the presence or development of the right policy frameworks, the right regulations under which we could do all of that.
Absolutely.
Around paying for those services, to consuming those services, to marketing those services, and all of that one. So that's one of the reasons for the early failure of those services. But however, since then, things have changed. Although we had a big macroeconomic crisis a few years ago, where our ability to actually repatriate, the payments that we had to give to the global partners was restricted. We couldn't pay them in US dollars. They they weren't here, so we couldn't pay them in PKR. So we had to stop all those services. So that was quite a big disaster in terms of the development of those. But that has helped the overall sector to find other ways of doing it now. And so hopefully now the regulations and the policies around it would develop positively. But that, I think, as an early journey, that ended up in a failure to scale. And not so much because of any individuals or individual operators, but as collectively in a heavily regulated space. The industry and the regulators were not able to define how to go about doing it.
And I think it was, as you mentioned, it was too early, wasn't the right time.
No, I mean, it was not too early from a global scale. I mean, these services had been working in other countries for 5-6 years, but perhaps in terms of the policy readiness, it was too early for this market.
And Khurrum Sahab, now I want to shift towards, internally talk more about your motivation. For instance, right now we're going through an entire, economic, political landscape. And I just want to understand what motivates you, because it's very challenging to steer the company in such times. So intrinsically, what is it that, makes you want to lead from the front?
I mean, these are very heavy words, right? Leading from the front and navigating the company. You see, the company continues on its journey because of everyone that is in the company and the customers and the business partners. So there is no one person navigating things, right? So so the work culture that we have, the way of overall working here is extremely collaborative, and not just collaborative between peer groups and different parallel parts of the organization, but also between the so-called management and everyone else. So there is, you can say, a collaboration from left to right, but also collaboration up and down. So that provides you a lot of, it's one of the strengths of this company. So, and that's one of the reasons that in spite of so many setbacks, you can say, from the macroeconomic situation, from the overall situation as it has developed for us, the company is still very resilient. The workforce is still highly motivated. People are still participating, and they are doing their best and coming up with a lot of new things and taking ownership of those things. That is not I don't believe that is a single person leadership thing. That's everyone being a leader themselves and then taking ownership of things. So I absolutely don't take any I don't agree to those words. I think this is a employee-led, participated way of work, and it's
so the ownership is there, definitely.
Yeah.
Khurrum Sahab, we've had some remarkable years at Telenor. Easypaisa is one of those byproducts of it, along with 4G. What has been your role in this, and how have you contributed to this journey?
No, and it's good that you remind us about Easypaisa, because people forget about it. And I remember talking to you a little while ago. We didn't used to have these terminologies about unicorns and stuff, but that is an example of a totally local innovation which achieved scale of billions of rupees. So what else is unicorn? I don't know. But at least Easypaisa is one such example. Similarly, quite a few other firsts that Telenor has had in this country. You would always want to feel proud of whatever role you've played. You cannot claim more than what's due. But I think in a lot of these projects or periods or eras or whatever you want to call it, I feel happy or content that there have been contributions, whether it's It's been, doing some of the work yourself, or being a project manager, or being or leading some of these initiatives where you have to be very decisive, you have to be clear-headed, you have to understand the problem that exists, and you have to take decisions. So we've had, a mix of all of those over the past 17, 18 years. And that's that's the contribution we can make.
So, Khurrum sir, when you became CEO of Telenor Pakistan, the M&A discussion was already in play. I want to know what were your thoughts back then? Because of course you're, stepping into something that is going to happen. There's a lot of, uncertainty around it. So how have you managed to deal with that?
Let's not single out a particular project. It's more, if we think generally, it's about how do you handle uncertainty of that scale, right? And the scale is that, if the job you're getting or the company you are being asked to lead would be there or not in a few months, right? So that it's all about uncertainty. It could uncertainty because it could happen due to any reasons, whether there is a M&A, whether there is some new regulation coming in, or the business priorities change and the company would no more be there. So whichever reason is there to create that kind of uncertainty for the future of the business that you are leading. It could be that you have a small startup and you are running out of funding, right?
Absolutely.
It could be a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
So the real question is, how do you, even if you knew it or didn't know it, and you've come to find about it, the real question is, how do you conduct yourself? How do you keep those around you engaged and motivated? I think that's the problem we should focus on.
Yeah.
And that was exactly the approach that finally I took, along with, of course, the other members of the management team. And that was to focus on what are the objectives you want to reach. So you have these, big North Star kind of things. And in these uncertain times, those are the kind of the North Star sort of clouds out, right? Because you don't have the 3-year, 5-year time horizon to think about those things. You are suddenly faced with this situation where you have to, your horizon doesn't go beyond a few months or a few quarters. Do you just give up and start looking at your watch for when that happens? Do you keep agitating about it and protesting and complaining about it? Do you run away, find another job? Or do you repivot yourself and you say, okay, maybe I'm a good leader when it comes to long time horizons and strategies, but am I a good leader when it comes to short tactical periods, when it comes to fighting these battles on a much shorter time horizon with much lesser resources? That's also leadership.
Absolutely.
Right? The leadership doesn't always mean that you have to show the way for the next 3-4 years. How would you operate a company for the next 3 quarters? So that's how I convinced myself that this is a role worthwhile continuing and taking on. And then that's how others were understood it when I explained to them. And then let's do that job. So it was, for me, it was a wonderful experience. And I'm really amazed with the energy, with the engagement and the resilience that the people are showing even in these times.
So, Khurrum Saab, and this really, you're absolutely right. The resilience showed in all of the people, the workforce. How did that translate into the profitability of the business? How was that journey like?
Overall, long term, of course, you still have, having a large business like Telenor Pakistan or other in a telecommunication looking at the massive investments that is needed. So, of course, that is still something that there would be questions around their long-term viability. But at least in the short term, in terms of achieving our financial targets, in terms of achieving the goals that the board sets for us, we've done quite well past 2 years. And that is a function of, first of all, getting a motivated bunch of people in the company who really would like to keep on pushing. And then opening your mind to not just repeating what has worked for you in the past, but to new ideas. And if not new ideas in innovation, but doing things differently. Questioning your assumptions, questioning the assumptions that we've been carrying on historically, because those things maybe 10 years ago worked very well for us. But then questioning, is it still the right approach? So a lot of that kind of rethinking, as we call it, reset in the mind and in the ways we were doing things happened, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, just look at the way the sales team now approaches sales quality. Just look at the way the bigger commercial team looks at products, pricing, customer value proposition, how the technology team is now coming up with a lot of new innovation in trying to improve the customer experience within the same resources as we've had. And then everyone else rallying around them and providing a supporting environment where these kind of reset of the strategy can actually be firmly placed as an operational deliverable. So the company has done well. People, we've got good results.
Khurrum sir, my next question to you is that part of failure is obviously you experiment, you learn, you take risks. And given the times we are in, how do you train your employees, scaling your team, not your employees actually, but your team as a leader to take those risks without knowing the outcomes? It's more of a mindset question, but how do you?
I mean, first of all, you cannot ask someone to take a risk if you yourself haven't taken that risk, right? So you have to be very, very clear on why you should do it. What are the consequences of not doing it? So that puts that particular risk in a certain perspective. And then you cannot just walk into something and then, this is the risk, I have looked at it. And you also need to be prepared on what happens if the risk happens as you are thinking. So the best is to prepare, to be aware and to prepare for it. And then that's how you convince others to come along. If you are not sure of doing that thing yourself, and if you haven't thought it through, that if something goes wrong, then this is how we would try to recover from this, then of course the people who are coming along with you or who are following you, they would have that hesitation. They would feel that the weight of that risk. So your role as a leader, you may not reduce the risk to zero. You may not be able to. You should not lie that there is no risk. You should be transparent. There is a high risk, but these are the kind of things. But this is why we should still try to do it. And then these are the kind of things that we have done to prepare ourselves, so that if the worst happens, then this is how we'll try to manage it. It still might go wrong, but at least you were truthful about it. You prepared it properly, and you let everyone know about it. So at least those people that were accompanying you.
Very well put.
But you should not do scaremongering. You should not, unnecessarily hype up things. Your role is to provide facts and then some connection between those facts and how they help you manage that risk.
Absolutely. And I think the part where you said you have to show up authentically is also,
Yeah.
it is part of that.
And you have to be in, of course, right? You cannot be on the sidelines and force others to take those risks and then somehow have your own insurance policy for this. I mean, that would be really sad, because people sense that.
Khurrum sahab, just want to understand, are there any personal habits you have that keep you, resilient in tough times? Anything that you do on a personal level? Any habits that you've adopted?
Sometimes unplugging from what's going on around you is important. So you, as a general rule, I don't do a lot of work socializing after hours. Once I go back home,
family
at the
time,
close
of
of
course,
business, then I try not to have these dinners with work colleagues or outings and stuff. I'm totally with my family. And then the problems, the things that they bring and they want to discuss are so non-work related that I forget everything about work. It's a good way to unplug, actually, and also to balance and be available for those for your family also. So that usually works for me.
Is there any hobby that you have? Anything in particular that you do? Maybe podcasts, walks?
Things change time to time, right? At some point in your life, you have certain habits. You enjoy doing something, some of those things. Then you look back and say, really, that's what I was doing. Like you look up something else. I have tried. So I've followed certain on YouTube, some of those speakers who talk about innovation. Followed some who've talked about how AI is bringing things. So these are good way to still keep up with what's going on, but then not to sort of disengage from the day-to-day problems. So some of those follow politics, what's going on around you, what's going on in the world. So try to catch up those. I've subscribed to quite a few journals over the internet, so I collect certain articles over the week and then do those readings on the weekend.
Khurrum sahab, what advice would you give to your younger self? I know this is a very cliche question, but when you look back, there's always a bunch of things you would like to tell your younger self. So
I think one of the things that a lot of hardworking young people miss is the importance of communication. We have this syndrome that our work will speak for itself, right? It does. You cannot fake hard work. You cannot talk yourself out of it for long. Some people are able to do it for some time, but then others see you for what you are. So the importance of hard work remains. The importance of being honest and importance of being problem solving. All of that remains. But what is also important as a career is to also share those experiences, to talk about those things, because I've seen and I've experienced disappointments, people losing faith in their career, and some people actually their career is not progressing because they have not been able to talk about what they have done, to talk about the contribution they make. So you have to find that good balance where you don't become a kind of a talking head or a fluff, but also not someone who is unknown and you're kind of working in the background and no one knows about the work that you've done. So I think that's something that we should advise and we should train and we should help some of the young people who are coming fresh into the careers to talk about their contribution, to talk about how they have helped the team complete its tasks.
And Khurram Sahab, my last question to you for today is that what legacy would you like to leave behind? Not just for Telenor, but just overall for Pakistan's digital future. I know it's a heavy one. But
I'm not into legacies and stuff. I think all of us have a contribution to make at all our levels. The best you could do is whatever is given to you, whatever is expected from you. You try to make sure that you do that, and you try to make sure that you do more than what is expected, and then that leaves a certain platform for then the next set of people to build on. And I think that's, if all of us are happy and content to do our contribution to make a sustainable contribution in the overall journey of digitization, of digital ecosystem, of telecommunication, overall technology in Pakistan, then we should do our part, deliver it well, make it sustainable, and then the next set of people need to build on it. I think that should be good enough. I'll settle for that. Not go into kind of a legacy and all that stuff.
No, but that's a great answer.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Khurram Sahab. This was such a pleasure. Really got to know a lot about you, and of course your journey with Telenor even before has been remarkable. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story with us.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.